it has been abominable. And I've been threatened with arrest. It has been so stressful because I've never been threatened with arrest. What have I done? I'm a lawyer. I shouldn't be, I shouldn't find myself in this situation because Israel has been allowed to violate international law through and through. Nothing is perfect, but in my wildest dreams of accountability, I would have never expected to see the ICC prosecutor asking for those strong arrest warrants. So this is why, not perfect, but enough of a reason to act, not to sit idle.
Welcome to the Floodgate podcast, brought to you by the Palestine Chronicle. We are here to engage with today's most pressing issues and unpack them beyond the cliches of mainstream media. I'm your host, Ramzi Baroud. And with me is the brilliant Romano Rubio, Italian journalist and managing editor of the Palestine Chronicle. Let's get started.
Thank you, Ramzi. And with us in the studio today is Francesca Albanese. Francesca is the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Occupied Palestinian Territories, an affiliate scholar at the Institute for the Study of International Migration at Georgetown University, as well as a senior advisor on migration and forced displacement for the Arab Renaissance for Democracy and Development. It is wonderful to have you join us today, Francesca.
Thank you for having me back.
Francesca, first of all, you have been one of the most active voices regarding the issues of accountability and justice and international law in Palestine, as in Israel's accountability under international law, not only for the genocide in Gaza, but also for the ever-growing list of violations committed by Israel throughout the occupied territories. But already in November 2023, in a press conference in Australia, you stated that the international community was, and I quote, almost completely paralyzed, end of quote, in response to the Israeli action, while the UN was, and I quote again, experiencing the most epic political and humanitarian failure since its creation. This raises the obvious question. If one of the main representatives of international law in Palestine feels this way, how should the rest of us feel about the relevance of international law to this conversation? In other words, how should we perceive and engage with international law at this stage? Is it at all relevant?
It is relevant. For me, Palestine has over time, and more so since I became a special rapporteur, a way and a key to unlock an understanding, a precise understanding of the world we live in. And it's true that I've been a strong advocate for justice and accountability in Palestine. But I often say Palestine and an injustice that the people living there experience is a symptom of a global injustice and a global disorder. Why so? Because, as I've written multiple times in every one of my reports, Palestine has been the most blatant, the most flagrant, experiencing one day or one occasion of accountability. So while many have endured injustices, Palestinians have always endured injustices. And this is why I say the situation would have not become so serious up to leading people like me to argue that Israel has committed genocide in Gaza, and now that the genocide is leaking out into the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory, hadn't it been for the impunity that Israel has been granted. By whom? By the rest of the world, primarily the West. There is no question about that. It's not that, and they're correct, actually. Yeah, I think that the situation is more serious than what I assessed in November last year in Australia. It's not just that the system has been paralyzed. This system, part of the system, has actively enabled financially, economically, politically, and militarily Israel to do to the Palestinians what it's doing. So we need to make sure that the system that has led to this in Palestine is held accountable, because all of us and all our rights, wherever we are being sacrificed. And what has happened in Germany to me recently, and the freedom of expression and the freedom of opinions that have been curtailed, proves my argument true. It's not just about the Palestinians, it's about how much we can say and how much we can ask to the system. And if we do, we receive the pushback. So accountability is the only way to redress and to fix a multilateral order that is true. It has never served everyone in the world equally. Look at the global South. However, now it's becoming more and more unequal and ineffective for everyone. And universally, globally, might is making right. And I don't want to live in that society, and I guess you neither.
And Francesca, regarding what happened to you in Germany on February, we recall that on February 18, German police surrounded an event in Berlin featuring you after intense political and legal pressure, forcing the organizers to relocate the event twice. And you know the irony of it, because initially the event had to take place in the Freie Free University. So we should reflect on this, strange or rather bizarre situation where a respected representative of international law who is pushing for the application of international law in the resolution of the conflict is struggling to speak in Germany, while the biggest violator of international law at the moment is being embraced by the German political system to the point that now Benjamin Netanyahu has been invited to speak in Berlin. Is there a complete moral crisis in Europe and the West? I mean, yes, now everybody is surprised about the outcome of the elections in Germany, but don't you think this is the outcome of a bigger moral crisis?
I think that it's worse than a moral crisis. I think that we are already beyond the moral crisis. The moral crisis has always been there, and it's proven by look, there is an embrace from Germany between Israel and Israel. And while humanely, I do understand part of it, I also find it sickening. It's not a healthy embrace. I know this is blunt, but it is to be said for what it is, because there is no time to waste. And if people do not understand, we will continue to be stuck and sink. So I want to start by giving an example that will allow people to understand why I say that the reaction the German establishment, German academia, and German police showed against me is a sign not just of their opposition to Palestine or pro-Palestinian voices, because I'm not a pro-Palestinian voice. I have really, I'm not into the activism that is very noble, and I wish I had been more an activist in my life, and I'm not. And I regret, because the activists are really the healthy part of societies. The point is that this is the symptom of a crisis that Germany, like many Western countries, is going through. And look, I was in Germany in May 2024 after publishing the genocide report, and to discuss genocide and settler colonialism. And I had meetings with the government, meetings with journalists, meeting with think tanks, like dozens think tanks came to an event, hosted me, and dozens human rights organizations. This time, doesn't matter. Many more people are denouncing the genocide. So I'm not alone anymore. But what is the difference? Why the pressure all of a sudden was such that universities which called themselves free caved in to the threats and intimidation of the Israeli ambassador, the mayor of Berlin, other politicians and ministers, and the police, and all the mafia-style tactics that were deployed. Why? because for 10 months, the police and others have been harassing, tormenting, beating, detaining, arresting people who stood in solidarity with Palestine. And the result is that no one today, not even think tanks, not even the civil society, not even human rights organizations, not even academics want to speak out. Even the few, there have been, of course, few academics who have stood in solidarity with me and Eyal Weizman, an Israeli professor who's written about the cartography, who has produced with his organization a document called Cartography of a Genocide. So why all of a sudden a special rapporteur and an Israeli professor had become so controversial that couldn't be listened to? Because no one is to speak. And this is why it was so powerful for me and Eyal and the others and the Palestinian Germans and everyone who stand in solidarity with them. It was so important to have small spaces where we could still talk. And I've been threatened with arrest. It has been so stressful because I've never been threatened with arrest. What have I done? I'm a lawyer. I shouldn't be, I shouldn't find myself in this situation. And all of a sudden, I spent one night knowing that at the event, criminal charges could have been pressed against me. The reason why it didn't happen is because the United Nations made clear that I have privileges and immunities in the exercise of my functions. And Germany would have set such a negative precedent, because even Afghanistan's Taliban, Richard Bennett, the special rapporteur of Afghanistan, has gone to Afghanistan 3 times. And now he's even declared persona non grata. And he's clearly not threatened with arrest, So, but still, you had the police coming in full gear. So I said to the people there, I know that you lack oxygen here, but the fact that we're still speaking means that there is still some oxygen. And so the flame keeps on burning. This is what we need to understand. And Germany has a huge problem. And knowing Germany and knowing history, this is not going to stay in Germany. This is why we need to wake up. We need to understand what's happening and use the power we have in order to make sure that the horrors of the past do not fully display, do not fully translate into the horrors of the past. It started with a genocide almost 1 century ago, and it risks to become the same, and by which will be much worse, because today the means of mass control are much more powerful and lethal.
Was there an official statement by German authorities regarding what happened? Was there a follow-up by, let's say, Amnesty or other human rights groups, just to offer any kind of explanation or official protest to this?
Look, there has been protest, not from the entire human rights community, but there have been individual academics protesting, while others, so complacent, there are a few who have protested, saying, yeah, we understand the criticism against Albanese and Eyal. This is where I say less is more, silence is more dignified.
Mhm.
Why are you implying that the criticism against me and Eyal Weizman has any credit? I cannot, neither me nor Eyal can be accused of anti-Semitism or support to terrorism, because our very life, our entire life, is a testament to engagement and commitment, selfless commitment to human rights and justice for whomever, Palestinians and Israelis, Muslim, Christians, Jews or Buddhists, or anyone, because our faith is in the value of every human life as part of our humanity. But so before the event, there had been a response, but first of all, there has never been an official statement by the government. Everything has been said through the media. And the language used, particularly against me, has been venomous. It's indecent, and the misogyny of this patriarchal structure that takes the liberty to vilify, mortify, and sort of like as a caterpillar go on human dignity and facts and history. It has been abominable. The response prior to the event has been very mild, but after I left, at least this has generated debate in the little spaces for debate that there is. So there are scholars who have written a letter to the European Society for International Law saying we should host, because this is held in Germany now. So we should host professors Weissman and Albanese and make sure they're allowed to speak, because this is a response to the intimidation that has been effective because people are cowards.
Well, we have two separate cases here. I will use the legal language, not my own feelings about it. One is at the ICJ, International Court of Justice, where South Africa has brought a case against Israel, accusing it of committing genocide in Gaza, and with the court ruling that there is plausible risk of genocide, and with the outright arrest warrants for two Israeli leaders, including the current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and three Palestinian leaders who have all been assassinated by Israel. Now, when the ICJ reached its initial conclusion last May, there was a great sense of euphoria. People were literally dancing in the streets, including the South African lawyers who championed this cause. There was this idea, maybe based on some kind of a collective misunderstanding or a sense of desperation, that now the international community has taken the first step towards accountability and this genocide is going to stop. But the opposite actually happened. There's a delay, long delay. And of course, the US administration, both of them, and Congress are actively punishing the very judges whose responsibility is to hold war criminals accountable. And by the way, this very much relates to what you had to undergo in Germany. So if you could first walk us through the legal procedure underway now and offer your assessment regarding the process itself. Is it efficient? Do Palestinians and their supporters have a reason to remain hopeful?
Yeah, Ramzi, you might remember that since the beginning of my mandate, I've been quite critical of the International Criminal Court for its delay, its dragging its feet, etc. I think that the court should have been acted more robustly and proactively much earlier. It shouldn't have taken 3 years since the opening of the investigation since the official opening of the investigations, while all the questions of jurisdiction had been resolved. Is Palestine a state? Can it decide? Is there the possibility for the court to pronounce itself on Israelis operating in the occupied Palestinian territories? So once all the question of jurisdictions were resolved, the investigation was open, but not in 2021, and nothing happened until 2023. However, after 2023, the ICC has moved. Nothing is perfect, but in my wildest dreams of accountability, I would have never expected to see the ICC prosecutor issuing asking for those strong arrest warrants. And the arrest warrants that were issued, sure, there is no indication of genocide, but genocide is probably the most difficult crime to investigate. And the crimes that were identified on the arrest warrants through which Netanyahu and Gallant, let's just talk about the living, were indicted, were crimes against humanity and serious war crimes like extermination, starvation, and persecution. And also there was this language like destruction, creation of conditions calculated to destroy, to physically destroy. So there is an inference, there is a reference to genocidal to genocidal intent somewhat. So that is good. I wouldn't say it's efficient. It's as good as it can be, considering also the political pressure on the ICC. This is not a perfect world, as you can see. And now, like 3 months after the indictments, you have, on the one hand, member states saying, doesn't matter, we will not arrest Netanyahu. And then, but you have also judges and magistrates at the national level, like in France, saying we decide who gets arrested, because it's at the judiciary level, and that it's at the administration of justice level that there is a decision on how to respond to the arrest warrants. It should be automatic. And it's very serious if member states resort to politics to hamper justice. It's a problem at the international, but also at the national level. Then you have member states like the United States, and I'm sure that there will be some other fool following suit, declaring sanctions against the institutions and individuals. But let's not forget that the United States have something called the Hague Invasion Act, that it was not passed by Trump. It has been there for over a decade, I believe. And this is because the United States has always feared the international system, because the United States have violated international law, like Israel and like other states, but unlike other states, without ever facing political, economic, financial resistance, let alone measures. So again, it's very bad, but it's also an opportunity. Now, the reason why the system, both the ICC and the ICJ, which, by the way, has declared the illegality of Israeli presence, not just the military, also not just the settlements, any form of control that Israel maintains, including over the border, the natural resources, the airspace, the telecommunication, everything needs to go. So it's very clear what solving the situation in Palestine, according to international law, means today. Now that the international justice system has been put in motion, end of genocide, end of the occupation, end of apartheid, and bring to justice the perpetrators, holding accountable the states. Because there is also something that is not discussed, but the reparations to rebuild Gaza should be paid by Israel and its enablers. First and foremost, the United States and Germany, who are the main providers they account for 90% of the weapons that have been transferred to Israel. So this is international law. The reason why it's not working is because of lack of political will. And while I understand why Israel, the United States, and some European countries are against this, because this is, again, let's see it as a struggle between a disease and the antibodies in a body, or between dark and lightness. We really need to think in terms, this is not that complex. Of course, they resist for their own interest, but I wonder what the majority of the 191, meaning all the members of the General Assembly minus Israel and the United States, have to gain from this situation, from being led by this unlawful reality. Because the system, while again it has not protected everyone equally, still it's better. I mean, we will miss human rights when we don't have them anymore. We are nosediving toward a reality where there is no space to discuss peace and war. It will be just war. It will be war. And this is the lawless world that we are slowly embracing. So this is why, not perfect, but enough of a reason to act, not to sit idle. Because Ramsey and Romana, this is what I see happening. We are light struck in the middle of this crisis. No leaders rising above the madness and saying, calm, no panic. I'm telling you how we are going out of this mess, out of this chaos, which is through principles. Now we follow the yellow line in times of emergency. And the yellow line is we start respecting international law universally, so that universally we are held accountable, and universally we can function as an orderly society.
Romana, if you don't mind me just jumping in there very quickly as a follow-up. I mean, a good number of months have passed since the ICJ and the ICC kind of one starting an investigation and the other issuing arrest warrants. Do you feel that this awakening, maybe not at a collective level among the 191 members of the General Assembly. Do you think something of that nature is taking place, or you feel like nothing really has changed as
Mm.
far as the international reaction is concerned?
I think that there is awareness and there are steps that have been taken, both at the state level and individuals. So let me say, for example, South Africa going against all odds and against powerful states. South Africa has been under a lot of pressure and it went alone to the ICJ, bringing the case against genocide. Then it was followed by Nicaragua, who brought to justice Germany. And then member states have started to join. I think that now there are 10 member states who have joined South Africa versus Israel for genocide. There is also, and this is important, also 60 member states have made in 2023 submissions to the ICJ for the declaring the illegality of the occupation. This is also very important. Now there is the Hague Group, which is this coalition of member states who have decided which measures they will start to enforce in order to comply with international law. And it's huge. There are states who have started to suspend their economic military ties with Israel. The thing is that Israel is a military state which has provided, sold, and weapons and military training to most countries, including those who officially have no diplomatic ties with it. So it's very entrenched into the system, and it's selling drones, it's selling again, ways to control the population in a repressive way. So the fact of having member states starting to disengage, not buying Israeli security services or systems, it's already a step forward. The most interesting part, though, for me, remains at the grassroots level. What is happening is I do see, because I travel across the world and I do have such a privileged observation point. So I do see, for example, the youth protests, the university encampments, the civil servants who have resigned or are resisting within the system, the doctors who are resisting and asking for. So these protests are first and foremost an important sign of awareness. We need to grow. We need to unite. We need to get out of our silos, We keep on growing, but still in our silos. If we unite, we are stronger. But also, what do we unite for? In awareness. We need to understand what is at stake. So we need to understand what's happening to the Palestinians, fight the dehumanization of the Palestinians, because again, it was so beautifully put and so powerfully put by my friend Daniel Levy yesterday at the UN Security Council. He said, yes, of course, we owe a minute of silence for the two Bibas children who were killed. And we also need a minute of silence for the 18,000 Palestinian children who have been killed in Gaza, which means 300 hours and 2 minutes of silence. So, we need to bring back the fact that we have so much in our societies dehumanized the Palestinians. It's not about rehumanizing the Palestinians. The Palestinians are very incredible humans. It's us. We need to deal with our racial bias. So there is a lot of unpacking and understanding. But while we do that, the level of education and awareness can be also used to fuel the power which is inside each of us. We have been rendered so frail by this understanding that everything has been written elsewhere. Everything is been decided elsewhere. Hell, this is not true. And this is why we need to remind ourselves that we would still have slavery had it been for people fighting to end slavery and to codify that slavery is unacceptable and a crime, to end slave trade or to end apartheid. We wouldn't have we wouldn't have had the end of racial segregation in the United States had it been for the civil rights movement. And we wouldn't know about how many genocides have been committed in Australia, in the United States, and in Canada or in Africa, hadn't it been for the scholarship and the critical race theory and everything that is mounting. So yes, I know that it's a very dark period and the system is very unfair, but because, hello, the system and the world have always been unfair. And now we have the chance to make, like our predecessors, to make it a little less unfair. But we cannot do that from our tablets, from criticizing and crying over what we see. We need to act. We need to use our consumption power, our purchase power, our voting power. We need to protest. We need to disrupt the order and not to get distracted by, the madness that is thrown at us every morning, every night from the United States. These are tools of mass distraction from people who understand the power of communication and how what is said can be psychologically overwhelming. We need to stay calm and clear, and we need to know that like human rights have been are the results of emancipation, but they're also tools for the emancipation. So we need to vindicate our rights. We need to vindicate our rights, not just for the Palestinians, for us.
Thank you,
And
Francesca.
just a very quick question and reflection with you, Francesca, at the end. The issue of humanizing or dehumanizing is also on us journalists. And what we and others love about you is your courage and the fact that you are able to address multiple issues, and the way you make international law not just technical, but also applicable to many contexts. For example, in a social media post very recently, you said Western media should be investigated for the role they are playing in obscuring Israel's atrocities. So can you help us, understand this concept a little bit more? And what can we do as journalists everywhere to be aware of the important role that we actually play?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think this is the thing. Human rights lawyers tend to be quite pragmatic because especially those who remember the critical role that social movements and individuals have played to advance conquest and civil society at the civil society or the societal level that then have been codified. We wouldn't have the right of self-determination as a universally codified right hadn't it been for the struggle of millions of people breaking the chains of colonialism. You see what I mean? And because now many rights, freedom of expression, freedom of the right to criticize, the right to have access to information, access to justice, these are rights for us. I say in the West, which have been which portray themselves, like Western societies portray themselves as the bulwark of fundamental freedoms and rights. Well, when protesters are beaten or arrested and detained, where freedom of speech is denied, this is where we go to justice. We go to justice because those, through, for example, the European Legal Support Center and other lawyers, those who have taken to justice cities, municipalities, universities who have vilified or dismissed or sued people for their stance on Palestine, for example, they lose. And so, this is why I say we have had the era of standard settings in terms of human rights, the era of law enforcement. So once the standards were set, structures, parliament, or ombudsman started to be created. But if the law is not enforced properly, then next in line is the judiciary at the national or international level. And of course, there are also individuals like civil societies who, as I said, are the frontliners in the resistance for a healthy rule of law society. So I say we need to leave human rights. Human rights are not for, to be taught in school and then reprimanded and chastised in the street. It's the opposite. So when I teach human rights, I pass tools for empowerment, for awareness and empowerment to younger generations. And I I need to stand with them. I need to walk the talk. And I can do that as a special rapporteur, or I can do that as an individual. Now I do that as a special rapporteur.
Don't you feel it's a bit odd, Francesca, that the first country to actually pursue the matter at the ICJ is South Africa? I mean, there is a historical context to that, but it's not an Arab country. It's not a neighboring country of Gaza and Palestine. Um, Recently, you were on Al Jazeera. You spoke about the lack of action on the part of the Arabs. What is your message to the Arabs? What can they do considering all of this?
I think I've always spoken to Arab media and Arab audiences, and you probably know, I mean, I live in Arab countries. I've lived in the Arab region for many years in the past 20 years of my being an expatriate. And I have a strong connection also as part of the Mediterranean area. I have a strong connection to Arab people. And I do not understand the kind of schizophrenia that exists around Palestine. Because on the one hand, I know that Palestine has always been high in the political rhetoric, but it has also been accompanied by unsettling policies at the country level. So Palestinians have been displaced from the Arab region, not just from historical Palestine or the occupied Palestinian territory. However, today, you see that the movement in support for the Palestinians is as strong as ever among the people. And I think that political leaders who have always been forced, because of the dependency that still exists between the Arab region and some influential member states, today there is a challenge for Arab leaders to rise above this madness and show leadership. Because I've heard some leaders of Arab countries, which I'm fond of, saying, my region cannot be, and this is particularly in the Gulf, my region cannot be the ATM of the world. Excellent. Don't be the ATM of the world. Don't have the West looking at you only for the cash. Be respected because of your principles and how you stand for your people. It's now the transformation that is happening, which is calling you to play a different role from what has been in the past. And the people will be with you and will also be in such a powerful way to break with the past and with the not very liberal and not very human rights tradition of Arab countries. Now, I don't want to make everything sound simple and all of a sudden everything will turn into dreamland. No, but this is going to be an opportunity to reunite the people and their leaders, because Palestine is a unifying rallying cry across the globe, including the Arab world.
Francesca, thank you very, very much for taking the time to speak with us and for your tireless effort in the pursuit of justice for Palestine. To our viewers, we appreciate you tuning in. Remember, the best way to push back against censorship is by engaging directly with our content. So please like, share, comment, follow, and speak out. From me and my co-host, Romana, we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of The Floodgate.